In 1999, when I took a convoy to Baghdad to try to rescue, as Dr. Attallah was saying, the children of Iraq who were being starved to death for political reasons. And in 2009, for this convoy to Gaza, wallahi, they should make me the envoy between Morocco and Algeria. I could solve their problem overnight if I only knew what the problem was. These countries hurried us along. They found roads that no one had driven on for many years. Desert roads. Just so we wouldn't snarl up the traffic in the cities and the towns, you understand. Our convoy was more than 1 mile long. They deployed police, even soldiers, to keep the masses of these countries away from our convoy. But all the police and all the soldiers could not keep the Arabs of the Maghreb from pushing towards our convoy to touch the vehicles, to give us their babies to kiss, to take off their wedding rings, to push through the window, telling us to take it to Gaza. 50 wedding rings we took to Gaza from women along the way, pressing food. Begging us to take them with us to Gaza. One old man, an Algerian, Felahin, a laborer, he begged me to take him in the back of my vehicle. I told him, I sleep in the back of this vehicle. There is no room. And they're not short of Felahin in Gaza. Why do you want to go? He said, I want to tell them that when they bleed, we bleed. When they cry, we cry. And that we are thinking of them day and night in this moment of their trial. This was the feeling of the Arabs, and is the feeling of the Arabs, from Marrakesh to Bahrain, from the Atlantic to the Gulf, and throughout the world in this diaspora. The governments, of course, are another thing. In fact, I have to say, though I'm not a supporter in any way of the government or system in Libya, the only country which warmly received us on a governmental and a popular level was Libya. Honesty requires me to say, they asked us, how many trucks do you have? I said 110. They said, you now have 220. And they doubled the size of this convoy. So now we were more than 2.5 miles long. Can you imagine? And then we reached Egypt. People ask me, why did you take this long way? Why didn't you go the short way? Why didn't you go through Europe and sail to Alexandria? I answered, because I wanted to give the government of Egypt plenty of time to think about us. And it was one of my better decisions. Because by the time we reached Egypt, so great was the momentum, so huge was the interest in this huge convoy, which had never been seen before, that when we arrived in Egypt, we discovered we were now the guests of the ruling party of Egypt, the National Democratic Party. And they're a very popular party, by the way. They get 99.9% of the vote when there are elections, so we knew how important this was. And suddenly, everywhere I went, behind me was a portrait of His Excellency President Hosni Mubarak. And incidentally, I take this opportunity to extend my condolences to him and his family on the tragic loss of his grandson. We had difficulties in Egypt, but I don't dwell on them, because we have to go back to Egypt again and again and again and again and again until we've ended this siege of Gaza. Because whatever the devastation caused by Israel, 1,400 killed in 22 days, thousands maimed, hundreds amputated, scores double amputated, dozens triple amputated, hundreds orphaned. MashaAllah, more Palestinians were born in that 22 days than Israel managed to kill. So the problem is not the Israeli bombardment. That's what I'm here to tell you. 61,200 houses destroyed. Never mind. Thousands killed, maimed, orphaned. Never mind. We can face that, say the Palestinians in Gaza. Just lift this siege so that all 1.5 million of us can eat. People in Gaza are eating from the garbage heaps. Every morning I watched women, Arab women, Muslim women, clambering over the garbage heaps to find food. 1.5 million people are locked up with no food, no supplies of any kind, because of this siege. And it's this siege that we have to end. And why are they being besieged? Because they voted in a democratic election in a way which London and Washington and Tel Aviv doesn't like. And they're being held hostage to cry surrender or we'll go on starving you to death. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to collaborate by silence or inactivity in such a crime. That's why I told this little girl who asked where the Arabs were, where the Muslims were, who asked why we had left her alone. I told her that I was coming to the United States of America and I would return to her at the head of a convoy of hundreds of American flags on American vehicles with millions of American dollars to come to her aid. It is a duty, a wajib, to raise your hand against injustice. If you can't raise your hand, to raise your voice against injustice. And if you can't raise your voice to feel that injustice in your heart that Dr. Atalla told you about earlier, that's the law that we follow most of all. That's the law I hope you'll be with us in prosecuting on the 4th of July from the United States of America. Wassalamu alaikum. Thank you very much.
بدمنا مي يقتل الصوت المصلح برصاصه الحي ودمعة الام تصيح انا اسيل عخد عرب محمد والمسيح يا جبل ما يهزنا ريح نضل رامز القومية وسام الحرية شعلة اجداد دمر الروح الشبابية انا غريب ببلادي لكن احمد ربي اني متمسك بتراسي نادوني خاين عربي الداخل 48 ويدك عراسك احنا جذور فلسطين لطول العمر لو نارو الغربة احتلت داري
وصغرت أكتافي وقفت بوجه ظلامي يتيما عاريا حافي حملت دمي على كفي طبعا نكست أعلامي وصمت العشب فوق قبور أسلافي أناديكم أشد على أيادي